For 1,000 years, the galaxy knew peace. Treaties held, and Earth kept quiet. But peace breeds weakness. And when the Council broke the pact, they expected hesitation. Instead, humanity smiled. Because Earth didn't forget war. We studied. It evolved with it. And while the stars slept, we were getting ready. The morning started like any other for Ambassador Elena Vasquez. She sipped her coffee while reviewing diplomatic cables from the Mars colonies. The gentle hum of Geneva's traffic filtering through her office windows. At 52, Elena had spent her entire career preparing for first contact with alien civilizations. She had studied xenopsychology, mastered 17 human languages, and developed protocols for every conceivable scenario. She had not prepared for this. The massive ships appeared without warning, blotting out the sun over every major city on Earth. They were beautiful in their alien design, crystalline structures that seemed to bend light around them, casting rainbow shadows across the planet's surface. Within minutes, every communication network on Earth received the same message, transmitted simultaneously in perfect English, Mandarin, Spanish, Arabic, and dozens of other human languages. Greetings, inhabitants of the third planet. We are the Stellar Consortium, representatives of 47 advanced civilizations. You will prepare for immediate evacuation of your star system. You have 72 hours. Lena set down her coffee cup with deliberate calm. Around her, the international diplomatic corps had erupted into chaos. Phones rang constantly, screens flickered with incoming data, and her assistant burst through the door with a tablet displaying global news feeds, showing mass panic in major cities. Ambassador, the president, is calling an emergency session. Security Council wants to tell them I'll be there in an hour, Elena said, her voice steady. First, get me Captain Chen. Marcus Chen arrived at the diplomatic facility within 30 minutes, his military bearing unchanged despite the circumstances. At 45, he commanded Earth's Defense Coordination Center, a position most people assumed was largely ceremonial. After all, what could humanity defend against that came from space? Elena, he said, settling into the chair across from her desk. I assume you've seen the message. Every human on the planet has seen it by now. Marcus, I need to know our options. Chen smiled. It was not the smile of a man facing impossible odds. It was the smile of someone who had been waiting for this moment his entire career. We have more options than they think, he said quietly. The question is whether you're ready to play the game we've been preparing for. Before Elena could respond, her office's communication system activated. The main screen flickered to life, displaying the interior of what was clearly an alien vessel. The being that appeared defied easy description. It stood nearly 8 feet tall, with translucent skin that revealed complex organ systems beneath. Its eyes were large and dark, set in a face that was almost human, but wrong in subtle ways that made Elena's instincts scream danger. I am High Arbiter Zekthar, the being said, its voice carrying an odd harmonic quality. I speak for the Stellar Consortium. We have come to inform you of your relocation. Lena stood, smoothing her diplomatic jacket. I am Ambassador Elena Vasquez, representing the United Nations of Earth. We appreciate your notification. However, we'll need more information before we can consider such a significant request. The alien's expression shifted in what might have been amusement. You misunderstand. This is not a request. Your species has developed sufficiently to warrant our attention, but your star system occupies a critical position in hyperspace. We require it for our expansion. You will be relocated to a suitable world we have prepared. How generous, Elena said, her tone remaining diplomatically neutral. And if we decline? Zekthar's voice carried what Elena recognized as genuine surprise. You would choose extinction over relocation. Your species has barely achieved interplanetary flight. You possess no weapons capable of threatening our vessels. Your defensive capabilities are... The alien paused, consulting what appeared to be a data display, primitive at best. Captain Chen stepped forward. High Arbiter, I'm curious. How did you assess our defensive capabilities? Zekthar's attention shifted to Chen. We have observed your species for several of your decades. You're aware of your nuclear weapons, your early laser systems, your chemical rockets. It's impressive for your developmental stage, but irrelevant against consortium technology. I see, Chen said. And you're certain you've observed everything? For the first time, the aliens seemed uncertain. Your meaning is unclear. Alina felt a familiar thrill, the same sensation she'd experienced during her most challenging negotiations. The moment when you realized your opponent had made a crucial error. High Arbiter, she said. We understand your position. However, as the representative of my species, I must point out that you're asking us to abandon our home. Surely you can understand why we might want to discuss alternatives. There are no alternatives, Zekthar stated firmly. The consortium has spoken. You have 72 hours to begin evacuation. Ships will be provided for your relocation. And our answer is no. The words hung in the air like a physical presence. Alina had delivered them with the same tone she might use to decline a dinner invitation, but their effect on the alien was immediate and dramatic. Zekthar's translucent skin flushed with colors Alina had never seen before. You... refuse? This High Arbiter said, his voice rising in pitch. You choose death? We choose to remain? Alina corrected. This is our home, High Arbiter. We were born here. We'll die here. If you want our system, you'll have to take it from us. Zekthar's image flickered as he apparently consulted with others outside the visual range. When he returned his attention to them, his demeanor had shifted from surprise to something approaching anger. Your species is either brave or foolish beyond measure, he said. We have conquered solar systems. We have reduced planets to asteroid fields. We command the power of stars themselves. Impressive, Chen said. Downed the power of human stubbornness. I wonder which will prove stronger. The alien's response was cut short as alerts began sounding on his end of the transmission. Lena could see other beings moving rapidly behind him, their body language suggesting urgency or alarm. Happening? Alina asked, though she suspected she already knew. Zekthar consulted his displays, his expression growing increasingly confused. There are anomalies. Energy readings that don't match our previous surveys of your system. Chen and Alina exchanged glances? Anomalies? Chen asked innocently. Your moon, Zekthar said slowly. It's not where it should be. And there are structures. Massive structures appearing throughout your system. How is this possible? Alina smiled. It was the same smile that had made her legendary in diplomatic circles. Her smile that appeared when she held all the cards and was about to reveal her hand. High Arbiter, I think there's been a misunderstanding. You see, you've been watching us for decades, and we've been putting on a show. The nuclear weapons, the primitive rockets, the basic laser systems. Those weren't our best efforts. Those were what we wanted you to see. The transmission flickered again, and Elena could hear voices speaking in alien languages, their tones. Increasingly urgent, impossible, Zekthar said. Our surveillance is complete. We monitor all electromagnetic emissions, all energy signatures. Your technology is primitive. Your surveillance is excellent, Chen agreed. We've been very impressed with your capabilities. But you made one crucial error. You assumed we were trying to hide our technology from you. We weren't. We're trying to hide the fact that we knew you were watching. The alien's dark eyes widened. As the implications hit him, you knew? For 53 years, Elena said. Ever since your first deep space probe entered our system, we've been preparing for this conversation ever since. On the screens behind Zekthar, Elena could see what looked like a command center in chaos. Displays showed images of the solar system, but it was transforming before their eyes. Structures that had appeared to be asteroids were unfolding into geometric patterns. The Earth's moon was indeed moving, its orbit shifting in ways that violated every law of celestial mechanics. The consortium understood. This is a trick, Zekthar said, but his voice lacked conviction. Some form of illusion. No trick, Chen said, just planning. You see, High Arbiter, humanity has one advantage you didn't account for. We're really good at learning from our mistakes. Once we knew you were out there, we dedicated ourselves to becoming the kind of species that could stand up to you. The transmission was becoming unstable as energy readings throughout the solar system spiked beyond the consortium's ability to measure. Alina could see fear in the alien's eyes now, a fear that came from the sudden realization that the primitive species they'd come to relocate might not be as helpless as they'd believed. The 72-hour deadline still stands, Zekthar said, though he no longer sounded certain. The consortium's decision is final. Of course it is, Elena said agreeably. We wouldn't dream of asking you to change your minds. We'll give you our final answer in 72 hours. The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Elena and Chen alone in the office. Outside, the alien ships continued to cast their rainbow shadows over the Earth, but somehow they seemed less impressive now, less threatening. Think they'll actually wait the full 72 hours? Chen asked. Elena walked to her window, looking up at the massive, crystalline vessels hovering over Geneva. They'll wait. They're not sure what they're dealing with anymore, and uncertainty makes people cautious. Even alien people and our people. The panic in the cities? Elena's smile widened. Give it 6 hours. Once the initial shock wears off and people start seeing the footage of our asteroids moving into position, panic will turn to something else entirely. Pride? Curiosity? Elena corrected. Humans are curious creatures, Marcus. They're going to want to know what we've been building up there all these years, and once they find out... She turned back to him, her eyes bright with anticipation. Once they find out what we're really capable of, the consortium is going to discover what it means to threaten a species that treats the impossible as a personal challenge. Chen nodded, standing to leave. I'll start the final preparations. 72 hours to show them what humanity can do when we're properly motivated. As he reached the door, Elena called after him. Marcus, make sure they understand. We're not just defending our home. We're announcing our arrival on the galactic stage. Through her window, Elena watched the alien ships maintain their positions. Their crews no doubt frantically trying to understand how the primitive species they'd come to relocate had managed to move celestial bodies without generating detectable energy signatures. They would have their answers soon enough. The 72-hour countdown had begun. Humanity was about to remind the galaxy why they had spent 53 years preparing for this moment. The day the galaxy spoke to Earth would be remembered as the day Earth decided to speak back, what they didn't see coming 48 hours remained on the consortium's ultimatum when Dr. Sarah Kim stepped into the most classified facility on Earth, located 3 miles beneath the Canadian Rockies. The Nightfall Research Complex had been humanity's best-kept secret for half a century. The facility stretched for dozens of miles through natural caverns and artificial tunnels, housing technology that would have seemed like magic to most humans just days before. Sarah had spent 30 years of her life in these tunnels, working alongside the brightest minds humanity had ever produced. At 58, she was the project's senior theoretical physicist and one of only 12 people who understood the full scope of what they had accomplished. Today, for the first time in the project's history, she would reveal their work to the world. The main laboratory buzzed with activity as teams of scientists made final preparations. Holographic displays showed real-time data from monitoring stations throughout the solar system, tracking the movements of both human assets and consortium vessels. The aliens had been busy in the past day, sending out probe ships to investigate the anomalies they had detected. What they found was challenging every assumption they had made about human capabilities. Dr. Kim called out her assistant, Dr. James Wright, a brilliant young physicist who had joined the project 5 years earlier. The quantum resonance chambers are showing full synchronization. We're ready to begin the demonstration. Sarah nodded, walking to the central command platform where Captain Chen waited alongside Admiral Rebecca Torres, the head of Earth Space Command. Torres was one of the few military officers who had known about Nightfall from the beginning. Having helped coordinate the project's security for decades, Admiral Torres said, "The President is about to address the world. Are you certain our systems will perform as expected? Certain as any scientist can be about rewriting the laws of physics?" Sarah replied with a slight smile. "Rebecca, what we're about to show the consortium will change everything. The question is whether humanity is ready for what comes next." Captain Chen pulled up a holographic display showing the positions of consortium ships throughout the solar system. They've detected our movements, but they can't understand what they're seeing. Their probes are reporting impossible energy readings and structures that appear to phase in and out of existence. Because they are phasing in and out of existence, Sarah explained. That's the beauty of quantum scaffolding. We've learned to build structures that exist in multiple dimensional states simultaneously. To their sensors, our defensive platforms appear and disappear because they're literally moving between parallel reality layers. The concept had taken humanity 40 years to develop. The breakthrough had come when researchers studying quantum mechanics realized that consciousness itself might be the key to manipulating reality at the subatomic level. Human brains, it turned out, were naturally quantum computers, capable of processing multiple probability states simultaneously. With the right training and technology, humans could learn to influence quantum outcomes through focused intention. "Show me the Mars installation," Admiral Torres requested. The display shifted to show the red planet. But what appeared on screen bore little resemblance to the Mars the consortium had observed. The planet's surface was covered with geometric patterns that seemed to pulse with their own light. Massive towers stretched from the surface into space, their tops disappearing into dimensional folds that the naked eye couldn't follow. The consortium scans show Mars as a barren world with primitive research stations, Captain Chen noted. "What are they actually seeing?" "Exactly what we want them to see," Sarah explained. "Quantum camouflage doesn't just hide objects. It convinces observers that they're seeing something else entirely. Every consortium probe that has scanned Mars has been fed carefully crafted false data, while the real installations remain completely invisible." Dr. Wright approached with a tablet displaying the latest intelligence reports. "Dr. Kim, we're intercepting increased chatter between consortium vessels. They're bringing in specialists from their science divisions. High Arbiter Zekthar has requested emergency consultations with their most advanced theorists." Sarah felt a familiar thrill of anticipation. This was the moment she had worked toward for 3 decades. The moment when humanity would reveal that they weren't just another primitive species to be relocated, but potential equals in the galactic community. "Admiral Torres, I think it's time we showed them Project Mindbridge." The Admiral's expression grew serious. Mindbridge was the most ambitious and dangerous aspect of Nightfall. While the defensive systems and quantum technology were impressive, Mindbridge represented something that even the consortium had never achieved: true consciousness transfer across vast distances. "Are you certain we should reveal that capability so early?" Torres asked. "They need to understand what they're dealing with," Sarah replied. "Mindbridge isn't just a weapon or a defensive system. It's proof that human consciousness can exist independently of physical form. That's something no species in the consortium has achieved." Captain Chen activated a secure communication link to stations throughout the solar system. "All units. This is Nightfall Command. Begin Phase 2 operations. Initiate Mindbridge protocols." Throughout the solar system, events began unfolding that would challenge every assumption the consortium held about the nature of consciousness and reality. On Europa, one of Jupiter's moons, what appeared to be a simple ice mining operation suddenly revealed itself as a massive quantum research facility. The miners working on the surface were not humans in environmental suits, but rather quantum consciousness projections. Human minds operating artificial bodies across millions of miles of space. The consortium probes investigating the facility suddenly found themselves in communication with beings who claimed to be human but displayed capabilities that seemed impossible. These humans could manipulate matter at the molecular level with their thoughts, existed in multiple locations simultaneously, and demonstrated an understanding of physics that surpassed even consortium science. "They're panicking, Dr. Wright," reported monitoring consortium communications. "High Arbiter Zekthar is demanding explanations from his science teams, but they can't provide any. What we're showing them violates their understanding of biological limitations." Sarah watched the real-time displays showing consortium ships throughout the solar system. Several were maintaining position over Earth, but others were moving erratically, their crews clearly struggling to understand what they were observing. Dr. Kim, Admiral Torres said, "We're receiving a priority transmission from Ambassador Vasquez. The consortium is requesting an immediate conference." The main display shifted to show Elena Vasquez in her Geneva office, but she was no longer alone. High Arbiter Zekthar's image occupied a split screen, and his composure had noticeably deteriorated. Since their last conversation, his translucent skin showed colors that suggested extreme agitation, and his movements were quick and nervous. Ambassador Vasquez Zekthar said without preamble, "We require immediate clarification. Our observations of your system are inconsistent with our previous assessments." Lena maintained her diplomatic smile. "Not sure what you mean." "Hi, Arbiter. Has something changed? Your moon has moved 17,000 kilometers from its predicted orbit. Our probes report structures on Mars that weren't there yesterday. We've detected energy signatures that suggest your species has mastered dimensional manipulation. This is impossible." "Impossible is a strong word," Alina replied calmly. "Perhaps unlikely would be more accurate." Sarah stepped into view of the camera, drawing the alien's attention. "Hi, Arbiter. I'm Dr. Sarah Kim, Director of Human Advanced Research. Perhaps I can clarify things for you." Zekthar's large eyes fixed on her with desperate intensity. "You are responsible for these anomalies." "Anomalies." Sarah laughed, the sound carrying genuine amusement. "Hi, Arbiter. What you're seeing isn't anomalous. It's Tuesday." The alien's confusion was evident. "Explain." "The solar system." But this wasn't the solar system the consortium thought they knew. This version showed massive structures connecting every major celestial body, energy networks that spanned millions of miles, and defensive installations that dwarfed the consortium's largest ships. "Hi, Arbiter. You've been observing humanity for several decades, but you were only seeing what we allowed you to see. The real human civilization has been developing along entirely different lines." The alien's skin colors shifted rapidly through spectrums that hurt to look at. "You've been ... hiding your true capabilities?" "It's not hiding," Sarah corrected. "Preparing. See, once we detected your surveillance, we faced a choice. You eventually arrived, or we could take a different approach entirely." Captain Chen joined the conversation. "We chose to develop capabilities you wouldn't recognize as threats until it was too late to counter them." "What capabilities?" Zekthar demanded. Sarah smiled, and for a moment her image flickered, as if she were not entirely present in the room. "Hi, Arbiter. At this moment, I am simultaneously standing in a laboratory beneath the Canadian Rockies, walking on the surface of Europa, conducting experiments in the asteroid belt, and having a conversation with your science teams aboard. 3 of your vessels." The alien stared at her in disbelief. "That's impossible. Consciousness cannot exist in multiple locations." "Consortium consciousness cannot," Sarah agreed. "Human consciousness, properly trained and enhanced, can exist anywhere we choose to focus our attention. We call it mind bridge technology." And suddenly the view split to show multiple versions of herself in different locations throughout the solar system. Each version moved independently, interacted with different environments. It spoke simultaneously with different groups of consortium researchers. "Your science teams have been very helpful," all versions of Sarah said in unison. "They've provided us with detailed information about consortium technology, social structures, and military capabilities. We've learned more about your civilization in the past 48 hours than you've learned about ours in 50 years of observation." Ixar's image flickered as he frantically consulted with others off-screen. When he returned, his demeanor had shifted from confusion to something approaching fear. "What are your demands?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "Demands," Alina interjected. "Hi, Arbiter. I think you misunderstand the situation. We're not making demands. We're simply informing you that your original assessment was incorrect." "You cannot defend this system," Zekthar said, but his voice lacked conviction. "And yet," Captain Chen said pleasantly, "you haven't been able to detect our actual defensive capabilities until now." "Hi, Arbiter. Let me ask you something. In all your observations of humanity, did you ever wonder why a species supposedly confined to a single star system showed no interest in interstellar expansion?" The alien's silence was telling. "We've been exploring the galaxy for 20 years. Not with ships, but with consciousness projection. We've been observing consortium worlds, studying your societies, learning your weaknesses." Admiral Torres stepped forward. "Hi, Arbiter. We know about the rebellion brewing in the Outer Rim territories." We know about the resource shortages affecting your core worlds. We know about the political tensions between the founding species and the newer members of your consortium. Zekthar's skin had gone completely transparent, revealing the rapid beating of multiple heart-like organs. You, been spying on us. Learning about our neighbors, Elena corrected diplomatically. Just as you've been learning about us. The transmission was interrupted by urgent beeping from Zekthar's end. The alien consulted his displays and his expression grew even more distressed. Impossible, he whispered. Our ships, the reporting system failures. Weapons offline, engines unresponsive. Sarah's smile widened. Not failures, High Arbiter? Modifications. While we've been talking, our Mindbridge operatives have been making some adjustments to your vessels. It's nothing permanent, just some temporary improvements to help you see things from our perspective. Throughout the solar system, consortium ships found themselves unable to move or fire their weapons. They were not defenseless. Instead, their crews discovered that their ship's sensors had been enhanced beyond anything they thought possible. They could see energy patterns they had never detected before, dimensional structures that existed in parallel space, and most shocking of all, they could see the true scope of human civilization. High Arbiter, Elena said gently. We're not your enemies. But we're also not the primitive species you came to relocate. Humanity has spent 50 years preparing for this moment, and we're ready to take our place in the galactic community. As equals, Captain Chen added. Not as subjects to be relocated when convenient, Admiral Torres continued. The question now, Sarah concluded, is whether the consortium is ready to accept that the balance of power in this region of space has just fundamentally changed. Zekthar stared at them through the transmission, his alien features reflecting a mixture of fear, awe, and something that might have been respect. What happens now? He asked finally. Elena's diplomatic smile never wavered. Not as a primitive species begging for survival, but as the newest major power in this galaxy. And I think you'll find that humanity can be very reasonable, ... The transmission continued, but the real conversation was just beginning. Humanity had revealed its hand, and the galaxy would never be the same. When predators become prey, the 72-hour deadline had arrived, and the galaxy was watching. What had begun as a simple relocation operation had become the most significant shift in galactic politics in over 1,000 years. Zekthar stood in the primary command center of the consortium flagship, surrounded by representatives from all 47 member species. The air was thick with tension and the nervous energy of beings who had suddenly realized they were no longer the apex predators of known space. The holographic displays surrounding them showed a solar system that defied everything they thought. They knew about physics, engineering, and the limits of biological consciousness. Earth's moon continued its impossible orbital dance. Mars pulsed with energies that their instruments couldn't classify, and structures throughout the system phased in and out of detectability like ghosts made of light and metal. Status report, Zekthar commanded. His voice carrying the weight of someone who knew his civilization's future hung in the balance. Fleet Commander Isvara, serpentine being from the warrior species of Kethmer, slithered forward. Her scaled hide showed the deep blue patterns that indicated extreme concern among her people. High Arbiter, our tactical assessment teams have completed their analysis. The human defensive capabilities are ... unprecedented, elaborate, Zekthar said, though he dreaded the answer. They have turned their entire star system into a weapon, Isvara reported. Every asteroid, every moon, every piece of space debris has been converted into some form of defensive platform. But more disturbing is their apparent ability to manipulate spacetime itself. Our ships report gravitational anomalies that suggest the humans can alter local physics at will. Science Coordinator Nethik, a crystalline being whose species had provided much of the consortium's advanced technology, chimed in with harmonic frequencies that translated as deep worry. High Arbiter, the energy readings we're detecting suggest the humans have solved the unified field equations. They're not just using technology. They're rewriting reality on a fundamental level. Zekthar absorbed this information while watching. The main display showed Ambassador Elena Vasquez in her Geneva office. She sat calmly at her desk, reviewing what appeared to be routine diplomatic correspondence. As if the most powerful military force in known space wasn't hovering over her planet with weapons capable of cracking continents. Open communication. Zekthar ordered. Alina looked up from her work with a pleasant smile. Hi, Arbiter Zekthar. I trust you've had time to review your situation. Ambassador Vasquez, Zekthar began, his diplomatic training warring with his growing sense of dread. The deadline has passed. We require your response, Course Alina said, setting aside her tablet. Our answer is the same as it was 72 hours ago. No. The simple word hung in the air like a physical blow. Around Zekthar, representatives from dozens of species shifted nervously. Consortium had never faced outright defiance from a species they had decided to relocate. Their superior technology and overwhelming numbers had always been sufficient to ensure compliance. Ambassador Zekthar said carefully, Perhaps you don't fully understand the consequences of refusing the Consortium's directive. We have the power to sterilize your entire world. Lena's smile didn't waver. Hi, Arbiter. I think there's been a fundamental misunderstanding about who exactly is in a position to make threats here. Before Zekthar could respond, his tactical displays erupted with alerts. Throughout the Consortium fleet, ships were reporting the same impossible phenomenon. Their weapon systems were not just offline, they were gone. Not destroyed or disabled, but literally absent, as if they had never existed. What is happening? Demanded General Krexter, the military representative from the Consortium's most aggressive member species. Captain Marcus Chen's voice answered from the communication system, though his image didn't appear on screen. General Krexter, this is Captain Chen, of Earth Defense. We've temporarily relocated your weapon systems to a parallel dimensional space. Don't worry, they're perfectly safe. We'll return them when this conversation is concluded. Impossible. Krexter roared. Matter cannot simply be moved between dimensions. Consortium matter cannot, Dr. Sarah Kim's voice added, her tone carrying the patience of a teacher explaining basic concepts to a slow student. Human influence matter, however, can be convinced to exist wherever we need it to exist. Zekthar felt his secondary heart begin to skip beats. Dr. Kim, you're claiming your species can manipulate matter at the quantum level through conscious intention? Not claiming, High Arbiter, demonstrating. Sarah's voice carried a hint of amusement. Would you like a more comprehensive display? Without out. Waiting for an answer, the space around the Consortium fleet began to change. Stars that had been in their expected positions for millions of years shifted color and brightness. The background cosmic radiation that had remained constant since the universe's formation began to fluctuate in patterns that spelled out messages in Consortium mathematical notation. The messages were simple. Hello. Welcome to our neighborhood, and please mind the furniture. You're rewriting the fundamental constants of physics, whispered Science Coordinator Nethic, his crystalline structure resonating with frequencies of awe and terror. Just locally, Sarah's voice assured him. We're not monsters, after all. Universal constants are universal for good reasons. But within our sphere of influence, we've learned to treat physics more as guidelines than absolute laws. Admiral Rebecca Torres's voice joined the conversation. Hi, Arbiter. I think it's time we've discussed the real situation here. You came to our system believing you were dealing with a primitive species that could be easily relocated. You've discovered that we're somewhat more advanced than you anticipated. Somewhat more advanced. Fleet Commander Esvara's voice carried the distinctive hiss of extreme agitation. You're demonstrating capabilities that shouldn't be possible for any biological species. Shouldn't be possible for any previously known biological species, Captain Chen corrected. Humans, it turns out, are what you might call an evolutionary wildcard. Alina leaned forward in her chair, her diplomatic demeanor shifting to something more serious. Hi, Arbiter. Let me explain our position clearly. Humanity has spent the last 50 years preparing for this moment. We knew eventually some galactic power would discover us and decide we were inconvenient. We chose to be ready. How? Zekthar asked desperately. How did you advance so quickly? Most species require millennia to develop basic interstellar capabilities. Most species don't have our particular combination of traits, Alina explained. Short lifespans that make us impatient, high intelligence that makes us creative, and a survival instinct that borders on the pathological. When we learned we weren't alone in the universe, we didn't just prepare to hide or run, we prepared to win. Dr. Kim's voice added, "You also made a crucial error in your assessment methodology. You assumed our consciousness operated within the same parameters as yours. Human consciousness, properly trained, can extend far beyond the boundaries of individual biological forms. We've essentially become a distributed intelligence spanning our entire star system." The implications hit Zekthar like a physical blow. "You're saying your entire species functions as a single collective mind?" "Not collective," Captain Chen corrected. "Networked. We maintain individual personalities and decision-making capabilities. But we can share consciousness, knowledge, and even sensory experiences across unlimited distances instantaneously." Admiral Torres's voice carried a note of steel, which means, "High Arbiter, that every human in this system is aware of this conversation. Every human knows exactly what the Consortium intended to do to us. And every human is currently contributing their consciousness to our defensive networks." Zekthar looked around his command center at the representatives of 47 species, many of them ancient civilizations that had ruled space for millennia. All of them looked terrified. "What are your terms?" he asked finally. Elena's smile returned, but it was different now. Less diplomatic, more genuine. "Terms, High Arbiter. You misunderstand our intentions. We're not interested in dominating or conquering anyone. We're interested in joining the galactic community as equals." "Equals," General Krexter sputtered. "You're one species and one system? One species that just demonstrated the ability to disable your entire fleet without firing a shot," Captain Chen pointed out. "One species that can manipulate matter and energy in ways your science considers impossible. One species that has been observing and learning about your civilizations for decades without you knowing it." Dr. Kim's voice added, "Speaking of which, we should probably address the rebellion brewing in the Outer Rim territories. Specifically, the Velthari independence movement." The command center fell silent. The Velthari rebellion was a closely guarded secret, known only to the highest levels of Consortium leadership. "How do you know about that?" Zekthar whispered. "Because 3 of our Mindbridge operatives have been serving as advisors to the rebel leadership for the past 5 years, Elena said calmly. "Helping them develop strategies, providing technological insights, ensuring they had access to accurate intelligence about Consortium military movements." The revelations kept coming, each one more devastating than the last. Humans had been present undetected throughout Consortium space for decades. They had been studying, learning, and quietly influencing events across the galaxy. "We've been manipulating galactic politics," accused political coordinator Shandell, being whose species specialized in diplomatic intelligence. "We've been learning," Elena corrected. "And occasionally when we encountered situations where powerful entities were oppressing weaker ones, we provided assistance to the underdogs. Call it a character flaw." Fleet Commander Isvara slithered closer to the display. "What do you want from us?" Elena stood, smoothing her jacket in a gesture that had become familiar to diplomats across Earth. "We want respect. We want recognition as a sovereign species with the right to exist in our home system. And we want a seat at the table when galactic policy is being decided? In exchange for what?" Zekthar asked. "In exchange for not destabilizing every authoritarian regime in the galaxy," Captain Chen said bluntly. "No. High Arbiter, your Consortium rules through fear and superior technology. We've just demonstrated that your technology isn't superior anymore. And beings who can exist anywhere in the galaxy simultaneously aren't easily intimidated." Dr. Kim's voice added, "We're also offering technological partnership, human consciousness enhancement. Techniques could revolutionize life for every species in your Consortium. Disease, aging, death itself could become optional. But that kind of advancement requires cooperation, not conquest." Admiral Torres concluded, "The choice is yours, High Arbiter. You can continue trying to maintain control through force and wind. Find yourselves fighting a war against an enemy that exists in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Or you can recognize that the galaxy has changed, adapt to the new reality, and work with us to build something better." Zekthar looked around his command center one more time. The representatives of 47 species waited for his decision, but he could see in their expressions that they already knew what it had to be. The age of consortium dominance was over. The age of cooperation was about to begin. "Ambassador Vasquez," he said finally, "the consortium withdraws its relocation. Directive we formally request opening diplomatic relations with humanity." Elena's smile lit up the entire command center. "High Arbiter, we would be honored to begin that conversation. Welcome to the future." As communication links opened between human representatives and every species in the consortium fleet, Zekthar realized that humanity had done something unprecedented in galactic history. They had turned a confrontation into an opportunity, transformed potential enemies into potential allies, and proved that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from the power to destroy, but from the wisdom to build something better. The galaxy had come to relocate humanity, but instead, humanity had relocated the galaxy's understanding of what was possible. And in the years that followed, as human consciousness enhancement techniques spread throughout the known universe, and new alliances formed between species that had never imagined cooperation, historians would mark this moment as the beginning of the true galactic age, the day when predators learned to become partners, and the universe became a little less lonely.